up to this point, and let's get ready for our first semifinals of the day.
To the top left-hand side, we have the blue Zerg player from Canada. This is Scarlett. Just a slight bit out of sync with the Chinese. You know, usually they get so quickly into it, Roddy.
Yeah.
I was expecting them to go the player cam and then be off the other side.
No, last week we had roughly 3.5 seconds to introduce both bases, both spawning locations. That, of course, also means that our Finnish BlizzCon reigning world champion is spawning in the right bottom side, representing ENCE and Finland. Opening up with the 12 pool here on Cyber Forest, it is Serral.
The 12 pool is something we've seen a fair amount of in the ZVZ as of late. Even Serral not afraid to bring it out every now and then, just saying like, hey, I'm pretty sure I can micro well enough to put myself into a very strong position here and just take a lead from that point and sort of play it out. So looking to apply the pressure pretty quickly on this fairly short map. I feel Cyber Forest is one of those maps which really sells itself as, you know, let's macro. It's very difficult to attack into me because of ramps and so on. But for attacks like a 12 pool, those links cross pretty quickly.
Yep, it is a gasless, of course, by Serral, so he's not all out, all in here. He's not trying to win the game within the first 3 or 4 minutes. Scarlett went for a relatively quick spawning pool after her hatchery, though. So it is a hatch first opening for Scarlett, but she didn't take like the gas and make 2 more drones or something. That was a spawning pool pretty much right behind that. So she is going to have relatively quick access to the links. Let's just see how this first micro battle plays out. But I do kind of like this by Serral, just opening up in an aggressive way, trying to force the fight on the other side of the map. Because if I am being honest, I absolutely can believe that Scarlett can win a best-of-5 against Serral. But it mostly comes down to strategy, right? I feel like the longer the games go, the more even everything is, and the more that Serral can dictate where these games go, the more confident I am for Serral. But I think Scarlett can absolutely win when it comes down to strategy, right? She's really smart in hitting certain timings.
Yeah, she's it's definitely what she kind of plays to her strengths when we do see these
That's
drones.
a lot of links, by the way, for Serral, man.
They're doing a lot of damage already. 2 drones picked off, and the couple links from Scarlett get surrounded right away. So not brilliant here. 4 workers, I mean, that's already the point at which you sort of say this is okay. And Serral's looking for more. Normally,
when 4 workers go down, all of the links have gone down at this point as well. Serral's going to send one of his Zerglings into the main base. No, I'm with you. I think that was a pretty good fight, pretty good start for Serral. Of course, Scarlett still did have her faster expand, but she ended up losing a couple of these workers, and a lot of the workers were, of course, helping out in defending. So that means they are not mining at that point. I think it's pretty even, but once again, I think Serral is okay. Scarlett is known as a pretty crazy ZVZ player, right? You know that she's not afraid to take risk. You know that she's not afraid to switch it up. So I think for Serral, it's all about keeping these games as normal as possible. And obviously, if you would ask Serral, like, hey, all 5 games, you want to play like Roach with Burrow and Thunder and Claw, Serral's going to be like, yeah, that would be nice. And Scarlett is like, no, that wouldn't be nice. You know, let's do what I do best. And then, of course, Scarlett is known for her Mudas, her links, her Bane links, and just kind of these weird timings that she's so incredibly good at finding and exploiting.
More drones on the way up from both as we see the fast layers coming down. Obviously, with the 12 pool, you kind of skip gas, and so typically a follow-up in towards gasless play, which then moves into fast roaches and no link speed, is what we see. And Scarlett's just going to match that as well. Says, yep, I don't need link speed here. I don't want to go and hit you with some sort of timing. So layers, Evo Chambers ready for the +1 missile attacks most likely. And in towards roach production in the near enough future. Third hatcheries as well, obviously for the moment delayed by both, but will be on the way up shortly.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of weird builds over the last 2 weeks, including I Am Katowice on this map as well. I don't know why, but for some reason, some of these link floods that I really feel were never supposed to work, they just kept on working here on Cyber Forest. So I can understand that both players are playing it safe here, trying to delay that third hatch for a little bit, and just make sure that you don't die. Nobody wants to have a rough start to their best-of-5. It is, once again, just a very, very big series, right? Like for us, we're just sitting here as nerds, having a little smile on our face. We're excited for the ZVZ. We're excited for the potential finals. I mean, we've obviously been talking about this tournament, and I think a lot of people would agree that your quote-unquote worst finals here is Scarlett versus Innovation. Yeah. Now, if that's the worst finals, Vardy, I would love to have that finals at every single Starcraft event I ever cast. So, you know, we're just excited, but for both these players, it's obviously, I mean, it's pretty nerve-wracking. It's such a big moment.
Yeah, no, it's, I mean, probably, has Scarlett ever played a series this big before? I mean, obviously finals have that prestige.
I would say Pyeongchang finals is probably the biggest, but I think she felt really confident about that because EVP was in a perfect place back then for her. I mean, we know that Scarlett loved her link drops, and she loved the link floods that were possible back then. So I think she actually went into that finals with a lot of confidence. But this is just it's just such a big moment.
Well, third hatchery is a lot faster from Serral than it is for Scarlett, and as Scarlett builds a bunch of overlords, I do start to wonder is what's the sort of the plan here? And she's just making those roaches, getting set to go, and Serral just sort of, again, third hatch just so much faster, while also building roaches just a couple drones ahead. I mean, he's a little behind in army, but I don't see a way Scarlett really abuses this.
No, unless he gets an amazing fight somewhere, right? Like, these things are possible on Cyber Forest. Imagine if Serral just one time has 3 or 4 roaches out in the middle or out on one of these ramps, and these 4 roaches get jumped on, they go down immediately. Things can get very dicey. Now, there are overlords in the middle of the map for Serral, so he knows about this move out. Scarlett is going to use some of her overlords to drop creep and make it a little easier for these roaches to perhaps get a good fight, but you gotta love the defensive setup so far from Serral, and I think I'm with you, Wardy. Normally, Serral should be alright here.
Yeah, he has his queens already pulled down to the low ground as well. A few slow lings show up from the behind as he does get surrounded there a little bit. Scarlett backs away, and Serral holds on, and he even, had a couple more drones coming up just before this fight. So in general, Serral looking pretty good here. Scarlett will now go straight into +2, which typically means she's like, okay, yeah, I can't really break you. I'm just going to invest more into the future. Drones from Scarlett as well. And Serral, as he finishes roach speed, he's only building roaches as well now. Okay, back to drones as well.
Scarlett is going to send 3 roaches over here on the south side. She'll find herself a drone, and that's pretty nice. But during all of that, Serral was mining a little bit more, or 4 or 5 drones for quite some time, and that eventually is going to turn into some numbers, right? Serral's army is supposed to get a little bit bigger soon than the army of Scarlett, even though Scarlett has caught up in the worker count and even has taken a pretty decent lead in this phase in the game. Can see right now defend against the very first real aggression of Serral.
Yeah, well, Serral's not going to go that far forwards, backs away. A few roaches on the bottom side, and Serral is outnumbered, has to pull the queen away, just as he wants to drone up this base. A couple of low-health roaches in the front get picked off, and then a couple low-health roaches in the back for Scarlett go down as well. So not much gained apart from keeping Serral back at home, and Serral did decide to add on 8 drones, which just put him straight up to 52 workers against the 47. So in general, Serral's worker count again retaking that lead, and just a bit of back and forth here in the ZVZ.
Yeah, I think both players just showing a lot of respect to each other right here in the first game. Nothing too crazy other than you could say the 12-pool start out of Serral, but even that kind of stuff is quite common. That's very nice for Scarlett. Just randomly finds herself an overseer kill there. These are pretty hard to get by in ZVZ, especially when you're playing against Serral. These are the small things that give you a little smile on your face and give you some momentum.
And that's the second time Serral's hit the Contaminate on the +2, though. So Scarlett is going to lose out on the slight upgrade lead that she had originally set up for herself. As she goes, Serral actually goes into the Pneumatized Carapace. So getting some overlord speed here, making sure you can maybe pull those overlords back in the future as the roaches.
Yeah, I like the way that Scarlett is moving her units on the south side, though. I feel like that has been pretty successful at this point. Found herself a couple of roaches a few times, and also, of course, a drone or 2 here and there. I just like it. That's a game that normally is a dangerous game to play against Serral, because when it comes to splitting up armies, when it comes to multitasking, a lot of people generally believe that Serral is the best in the world when it comes to that kind of stuff. But so far, Scarlett is not showing any fear, and I kind of like the way that she's been playing it.
You've been putting down a Nidus right now, so it's Scarlett to take the initiative in this first game now. Obviously, with the Nidus, you're going to open up a lot of potential for your counterattacks, for attacks in general, for multitasking. And this is something that Serral has shown to be very good at defending, but it is not going to be easy to defend. And it's definitely the sort of way that Scarlett likes to play, right? It plays into her strength of just being a little bit wonky and wacky and just not giving Serral those straight-up engagements.
Serral's actually making a few more drones now as well. There is a double Overseer Scout, and that should eventually find the Nidus, because there really isn't that much that shoots up right now for Scarlett. So it's going to be very hard to hide this in this point. And there is that Nidus network. It is being revealed. I think from this point on, it is indeed nothing but units out of Serral. Both players firing up Carapace upgrades, by the way, almost immediately after that +2 missiles. So, I mean, it's funny, right, because it's Cyber Forest, and this is one of those maps where it's actually, if you lose a fight in ZVZ decisively, all the roaches can run to the other side of the map and can straight up end it. And I think that's why you see both players having a relatively careful approach here in Game 1. I expect like more risk being taken on maps like Port Alexander or Automaton, stuff like that. We'll see probably some crazier stuff. Cyber Forest is just so small, it's so unforgiving that I think a lot of the things we see so far make quite some sense.
Tunnel and Claws and Burrow on the way from Serral, so this is where he starts to build into that really good stage of the game for himself, where he's going to be able to multitask and, again, just find ways to be aggressive. But there's the first Nidus from Scarlett on the way up now on the right-hand side, coming on down.
Serral is very close to spotting him, but not actually see it. At the same time, what I love as well is that Scarlett is still active with units on the south side. Of course, it is important for her not to overcommit. You don't want to lose too many roaches in a very reckless way. But now a couple of these units are going to spawn here, and that should maybe allow a cancel on the sport base. Serral does accidentally find a second Nidus going up on the south side. That one will not finish, but Serral needs to send those roaches back, man. This is getting hectic.
Yeah, these roaches on the left trying to break down. A couple of Ravages from Serral going to be able to keep them back. Also on the right-hand side, it's a similar story. And so far, I'd say Serral's defending pretty well, though. Even going to push up the ramp here, so feels like he has the numbers. That Nidus is going to finish. Goes down pretty quick, but actually tanks some shots, which gives Scarlett the slight advantage there. And Serral has to pull away.
Normally, this is indeed... Okay, that's very nice for Scarlett there, the double overload coil. Normally, this is that phase in the game where Serral seems almost unbeatable, right? Scarlett is playing a dangerous game here, kind of trying to out-multitask Serral. There are not many people who successfully do that, especially not in ZVZ, but this fight on the south side, I think, is actually going pretty well for Scarlett. If those Ravages start getting exposed, those were some big hits. But Serral needs to send a few more units there.
Good corrosive bars from Serral, and just Scarlett maybe getting a little bit too taxed with this, although she is winning out on the bottom. That Nidus reinforcing has been huge. And of course, remember, if Nidus is on both sides of the map, she'd be able to reinforce either side and retreat as needed. So that's a big part of the Nidus play here, as Serral gets ready to go for more defense.
If Scarlett actually pulls this off, I will be so freaking impressed, because that's actually really hard. And she is sort of out multitasking Serral here a little bit. She's winning that fight on the south side as well. At least she was in the beginning. Serral sending way more units to the south side now. And there are a couple of Ravages in the mix. Serral's got the numbers, but I don't really know where his units are.
Yeah, I think there's a lot just up in the center and the right-hand side, and that's why he's just a little bit outnumbered here at the moment. If Serral holds on, he's been having more workers for a long time now, and that's really helping him out as he does get on top of these roaches. The extra Ravages from Serral still alive is a huge deal as well. Even just the corrosive valves pushing Scarlett's units away are working absolute wonders. And that's a defense here. Another Nidus down. Okay, a few roaches to the right side, but again, Scarlett is slowly starting to bleed out.
I do actually really love the way Scarlett is playing this, though. But Serral doing a good job in defending, but he will end up losing a fort base, so that's obviously quite nice. So that worker advantage, that's not really going to matter anymore, right? Because where is Serral going to put those additional drones? At this point, Serral's had enough of it. He's like, all right, that's enough defending for me. Serral's going to try to strike back. On the other side of the map as well, Serral does have a few more units out at this point. Let's see how well Scarlett can deal with the roaches of Serral.
Yeah, Serral says, you take my fourth base, I'll take yours. Or maybe just a split, go for some drones. He does look to send a few more of those roaches up to the main and natural. A lot of Ravages down here.
Yeah. Serral has to be a tiny bit careful, right? Okay, Scarlett is going to send a lot of her units back home. Sometimes Serral can get a little overeager in sending drones everywhere at once, or roaches, rather, excuse me, all over the place. And then suddenly that doesn't have enough units at home. But of course, that is a choke point there near that third base of Serral. He's got a couple Ravages there, so he felt confident. He left enough units at home. And obviously, every second that goes by while he's picking off drones everywhere, Serral's going to maybe engage his army. Scarlett's not paying attention. That Nidus network is almost going to go down.
Just doesn't quite go down yet, but now Scarlett's drone losses are racking on up. 14 workers lost, and this is putting Serral into a much better position because obviously as Scarlett replaces some of those drones, she is not able to make Roach Ravager, and suddenly Serral is up 40 supply.
Yeah, Scarlett does get another cancel on that fort base, but obviously she has taken quite the losses at home economically. There's still roaches in her own fort base as well. This time the Nidus network goes down, and that means that Scarlett is going to have a relatively tough time getting out of there, but she will drop a couple of corrosive balls. But look at the damage that Serral has been doing, man. Serral actually played a really good game as well. I love the speed and the aggression coming out of Scarlett, and I love the multi-prong attacks. It is a dangerous game to play because normally nobody beats Serral in that phase in the game, but it really looked like Serral had a tough time dealing with these multiple attacks of Scarlett. But in the end, Serral stabilizes, and in the moment that Serral's like, all right, enough defending. Let's see what I can do on the other side of the map. Serral's getting done so much work.
I just love how he's always reburrowing those roaches. They're coming in for a second, third round of drone kills. And he just finds so much value again and again. Free roaches can cause such a distraction for Scarlett, and we definitely saw when Scarlett was distracted at home, Serral jumped on the army at 1.2, so that's another big feature. As now he pushes up through the center, he's cleaned out the Nidus on the left, and he's just going for it.
Yep, it's a very big army for Serral. Also starts his +2 carapace. He's pretty much maxed out, so despite the fact that Serral ended up losing that fort base a couple of times, he is in a very, very sweet position. He's sending in a couple of units via the north as well. Scarlett does have a lot of units there, so Serral has to be a little bit careful with those units on the north side, because they're kind of outnumbered there, but Serral's just shocking around, looking for an opening, and perhaps this is the opening that Serral was looking for.
Gets up to the third base and is going to have that high ground already as Scarlett tries to respond. Corrosive Bars from Serral are just keeping so many of those units of Scarlett away, and now Serral hitting on the right side once again as well. The Spine Crawler itself will not hold. Because this big fight, some Corrosive Bars are dropping down. I think Serral just get pushed back here, but again, doing damage on the right side at the same time. And overall just trading out, although Scarlett is now on a higher work account, so that's a bit dangerous. Serral's starting to get on top of the Ravagers.
I must say, this was actually an amazing defense by Scarlett as well. Yeah. So he landed a couple of very, very big Corrosive Balls. Serral pulled his units back, like he was avoiding them, but he sent them back in too quick. And that actually allowed Scarlett to, in my opinion, get a much better fight than he was supposed to get there, because he really didn't have that much. And that lead that Serral had, other than the +2 that's halfway done, where did that lead go, Waddy?
Yeah, no, it's disappeared. Scarlett made a huge round of drones after she lost quite a lot. She went up to more drones than before. Serral misses this Nidus for the moment. But now, them extra drones are really kind of working wonders for her. She's going to be able to build up a much better economy, much more money to spend, and that really forces Serral to trade a lot better. Yes, he's got a larger army to do that with, but it gives Scarlett something to play with.
Serral does have some vision on the south side, so he should be able to spot this other Nidus network going up as well. He's aware of these units on the north side of his fort base, but obviously Serral not in a position where he can lose. Once again, actually sent quite a few drones. Serral has no fear at all. He's looking at a multi-pronged attack of Scarlett. He's looking at situations where sometimes he's outnumbered, but he's still sending those roaches to counterattack, and those roaches have done a lot of damage. 18 drones already. I believe a couple of roaches are even in the main base. Don't ask me how. Okay. Just when you think things are starting to look a bit dicey for Serral, he gets a massive W on the board. What a great first game, Waddy. We've got 2 best-of-5s today, so the games better be good, but this is looking really, really fun. Yeah,
and Serral now jumping on this army as well. He's got a Carapace upgrade lead as well, by the way, so he's had that a little while to help him out, and now he's killing Ravagers, and those are expensive. Great dodge away from the Baals. Still Roaches on the other side popping back up, more drones going down, and Scarlett is absolutely falling apart again.
Just when Scarlett was close to maxing out, after he had a phenomenal hold, as he was able to even get an economic advantage for herself, suddenly out of nowhere, things went 0 to 100 real quick for Serral. Scarlett is going to try one more time with a Nidus on the south, but I believe that right now that Nidus is actually going to go down as well. Somehow survives with 1 HP, but Serral is winning this fight. Serral has obviously won the economic battle as well, and Scarlett is going to tap out. GG! Serral wins a pretty awesome first game of this first semifinals of the day.
Yeah, that was a real tough one for Serral, I think. Scarlett definitely had those moments where she was in the lead. She was looking very good. She had advantages. She was leading the game. And Serral just turned it around. I love the moment where Serral's just defend. And at one point he's like, right, this is the moment where I've killed enough to send roaches across the map. Suddenly he starts killing loads of drones. That was one of the times he took an advantage, and Scarlett fought back from there. But I loved so many of the moves from both of these players this game. It was fantastic.
Yeah. I love the approach from Scarlett as well. It's be like, all right, I'm going to out-multitask Serral here in the first game. And from time to time, it actually looked like she was definitely getting a couple of victories. And that's already very hard against Serral in ZVZ. But what I would love to see from Scarlett is to see her go back a little bit more to the Muno play. Now, on the stand side before us is a very small map. So maybe that's the one map where you shouldn't want to play Aspire. But I really believe that the chances for Scarlett in a best-of-5 here against Serral come down a lot to playing slightly different than whatever Serral is doing. Serral is playing Mass Roach, you're going to go Mutas. Serral is going to go for Hydras. You try to maybe connect it with a couple of Banelings. If Serral goes Mutas, then maybe you can hit a Nidus with some Queens and a couple of Roaches in the mix. I just think you always want to play the somewhat opposite of what Serral is playing in ZVZ.
Yeah, I mean, Serral is just that scary, right, when it comes to multitasking and so on. As we have Scarlett just asking the admins for something. So we might have a moment or two before we get into the game. But otherwise, going to be exciting. I can't actually quite remember what the second map was, but like you say, I feel like beyond this point, the games get a bit crazy. We don't see Scarlett playing as straight up, just going for the roaches and not really hitting any timings and so on. I mean, you didn't mention the mutas. I mean, things like throwing a Spire down after roaches is the exact sort of way that Scarlett loves to play.
Yep, and I think that's the one thing that Serral kind of dislikes in ZVZ. Like, if you ask Serral, he would love to just play roach against roach every single game throughout the year, because he rarely loses them. And if he does end up losing one of those games, it's often because his opponent had like a base more or did some damage earlier on with a certain timing attack that he wasn't totally ready for. So I think that Serral probably enjoyed that game. A lot of people would look at that game and be like, oh my goodness, what a nerve-wracking, hectic game. And Serral's probably like, this is nice, you know, battles everywhere, split up some units. Like,
good warm-up.
Hearing all those Nihiluses go off would drive me insane, knowing for the amount of money that I'm playing. But I think that those are the games where Serral really shines in as well. But I must say I was very, very impressed with the performance of our Canadian Zerg as well, who's definitely not up 1-0 though. That's a minor mistake in our overlay. I'm sure it will be fixed. So we're taking a look at the WESG logo. What we're going to introduce first, Waddy.
The bottom left-hand side, our red Zerg player from Finland is now in the top right in blue. From Canada is Scarlett. Oh, he just didn't know what to expect, do you?
They're not making it easy on us. So we hope that the scoreboard will get fixed. But once again, of course, it is Serral having the 1-0 lead. And there we go. Serral's the red Zerg spawning on the left bottom side. Automaton. This is a map that if you guys missed some of the actions in the quarterfinals, and I know a lot of you guys have missed some of it because the time zones can be a little bit hard, right? Especially if you're in North America. I think things get really hard when it comes to watching this event. So if you miss a game at 3 or 4 a.m. on a Tuesday night, I'm going to forgive you. But Dark versus Serral on this map, I think was a pretty freaking awesome game. And I think that really kind of showcased how good Serral can be in ZVZ and how sometimes it feels like the things he's doing are superhuman when it just comes to defending at multiple positions at once and at the same time still properly babysitting your Zerglings and getting so much done with them on the other side of the map.
I have that image of Serral splitting his Hydras against those Banes in like this perfect circle. It was just such an awesome game, that one. If you missed that, it's definitely want to go and check out. 2 hatch before pool here from Scarlett, so a bit of a curveball. Yep,
I like it. This is stuff that Dog was also busting out against Serral. By the time that Serral scouts this, I really don't think there is too much he can do about it. And Serral also not the kind of Zerg to really panic about stuff like this, right? It's often like, okay, it's double edge before pool. I'm not going to make 24 lanes because I have the feeling that's going to be too late. What often happens is that Serral fires up like a small round of links just to keep Scarlett on her toes and be like, hey, if I were you, I'd be worried about this because there could be more. More often than not, there is nothing coming behind it, but Serral just wants to flex his own muscles a little bit and at least force out a couple of defensive units of Scarlett, and then everything should, you know, head into the mid game in a relatively standard way.
Yep, Serral obviously will get a couple of extra queens. It is funny the free hatch before pool and ZVZ, the way it works out and the way that, again, you can't really punish it once it's come up, so unless you're already going for an aggressive build, there's not really much to be done apart from just saying, okay, well, you know, I'll take my advantages where I get them. I do have a faster ling speed, I've got my couple queens a bit earlier. You can still take a fairly fast third hatch as Serral, and I imagine that's likely what he's going to do here because it just, if nothing else, it gives you the production to make use of.
Now this I feel is a perfect map for Scarlett to play a little different. Maybe go for an upgraded Zergling style. I know those are hard to pull off in ZVZ, but I love watching them, so for my own entertainment I'd be happy. But I also feel that there is a lot of ways to run around on this map. There's a lot of stuff where you can really utilize the mobility of those speed Zerglings, especially if you get a couple upgrades. Serral finds himself the first drone of the game, and that's obviously very nice. But I think this is a perfect map for eventually some Muda play as well. But of course, it's important for Scarlett to get there and keep a close eye on what is happening on the other side of the map.
Well, Serral's making a few more lings. That's 14 in the production tab. His Baneling Nest is obviously quite a bit earlier as well. Scarlett has the gas for a Bane Nest, but isn't dropping it down, so may very well just be looking to bypass Banes altogether. There's the Roach Warren, and this could get dangerous.
Yep, I think that Serral somehow has a read on this. Serral is a player that absolutely does his homework as well, likes to study upon his opponents a little bit. There are 4 Banelings morphing already. I don't think those are defensive Banelings, Waddy. I think they're near the gold base, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is going to get very, very hard. Scarlett is avoiding the Baneling Nest altogether. That's obviously a play that could, you know, eventually give you a slightly better economy in the mid-game. But this is that situation where she actually does really need some defensive Banelings. The Roach Warren isn't done yet, and this is going to be difficult for Scarlett.
She's 8 workers ahead, so if she can hold that, it'd be amazing. But right now, how do you hold? Already a queen going down. The first Baneling, though, attacked by the queens, and 1 Baneling drops. Second Baneling targeted as well. The Zergling's still running back. There's the Baneling, doesn't connect still. Serral has so many Zerglings, though, and just because Scarlet's Lings have to run around so much, that's really painful. And now another Queen goes down.
Yep, the Banes are all taken care of, so maybe if Scarlett is just able to buy enough time for her Roach to come out. That was not bad by Scarlett. It really could have gone a lot worse. Yeah, losing the Queens is a bit painful, but I would rather lose a Queen or two, especially when I've got the stronger economy, than losing 8 or 9 drones, because that would have been really devastating. And then it could have also been the beginning of the end, because then Scarlett needs to build Roaches. He doesn't have a lot of workers. He needs to rebuild those workers, etc. I think that's pretty damn good defense by Scarlett.
Scarlett's a little bit afraid, still building Roaches here rather than going back into more drones. And I think she's actually just going to go for an all-in off her 34 drones, making an Evo chamber perhaps as a fake out if Serral scouts it. But with more Lings and Roaches on the way up, it really feels like Scarlett wants to attack, whereas Serral obviously, oh no, the surround on the Roaches. That's not good for Scarlett at all, and these Banes, I mean, they're just going to wait because they don't want the Lings to come in and help.
It felt that Scarlett was getting herself in a pretty strong defensive position. She actually had the army supply advantage, but losing those Roaches, I don't know if she wanted to be aggressive, Wadi, but that doesn't really seem like an option anymore, right?
No, absolutely no way. I mean, now she's going to have to drone up. You lose all of those Roaches. That's really, really painful. +1 missiles does start, as Serral does not have his own +1 missiles just yet. There we go, starting it up. As I say that, couple of Banes to help defend as well as those Lings get pushed away. And Scarlett down by 6 workers. You can see that income graph just skyrocketing back into Serral's favor now.
What a sweet pickup there for Serral, getting those 5 or 6 Roaches. I really think that gives him all the momentum that he was looking for. Getting the Queens suddenly means so much more as well after picking up those Roaches. Simply not that much to be worried about anymore if you're Serral in this case. Serral had an economic advantage, like the graph showed us as well, that will most likely continue soon. I think he's probably got a little bit, I love this. Look at these Zerglings. It's like, oh, that Baneling is my bodyguard. It's going to keep us safe through the other side of the map. Scarlett is sending her own Lings in, obviously trying to see what's happening on Serral's side of the map. She's aware of the fact now that Serral is also just building Roaches like her plan was all along.
Ling's going to arrive. There isn't actually anything initially to defend, so Lings go straight up to the main base. I mean, a couple of Roaches in production, but oh my god, not even in the main. I mean, how many drones is Scarlett going to lose here? 3, 4, 5?
That's actually going to be pretty painful. And these Roaches, of course, don't have speed yet, so that makes it even more painful here for Scarlett. I don't think that Serral ever expected to get this much done here with a couple of random Zerglings, but the door was wide open. There are Banelings trying to connect with drones at the third base of Scarlett as well. That is not really going to work out, but this Ling, I don't even want to call it a run-by, because the gates were wide open. It was an open invitation. Actually gets a lot of damage. Another Queen goes down. 6 drones go down. I am happy to see my Spire, but yeah, I think, well, Scarlett actually, how's Scarlett still up in workers? That's nuts.
Yeah, I actually have no idea at all. How are you up 3 workers, Scarlett? You just lost 6 to some random Zerglings?
Lost all the Queens in the beginning of the game as well. Of course, Scarlett did have the greedier opening in the... Oh. We're not done yet, Wardy.
Oh my god, 2 Banes still in the main base. 7 drones go down. That's where Scarlett's worker disadvantage goes. As we do see Serral now up by 10. Army supplies already leading. He's got his Roach speed coming up straight up +2, getting that Overlord speed as well to spread around the map. And that's actually going to be really nice against the Mutas, the ability to pull the Overlords back home a little bit faster. But of course, the Mutas can still cause some problems here.
I mean, that Spire is now almost done, so I actually think that this game will obviously go on for quite some time. There is no night as yet. There simply isn't enough anti-air on the side of Serral to really make something happening on the ground. And this is where I feel the chances are for Scarlett in this best of 5. I truly mean that. I think Scarlett is absolutely brilliant when it comes to her Muta play, when it comes to hitting certain timings, when it comes to reading out what her opponent is doing in those situations. And she's like, the Hydra then goes down immediately for Serral. But just having a couple of Hydras is often not good enough. Scarlett is really good at finding those little windows where she suddenly has a couple of Banelings on herself, even though she skipped the Baneling nest early on. So we'll see, but I am very excited to see it heading to this phase in the game. I obviously believe that Serral does have the advantage right now, but if there is one way to truly turn ZVZ upside down, I would say it's off the back of some great Muta play.
Well, Hydralisk will come out, but there's the Nidus network from Scarlett once again. I mean, she's been loving this in a lot of her matchups lately. And this is going to be really interesting to see how she utilizes it with the Mutalisks. See how she can pull units around the place, as we do see one Overlord going down. I mean, that was an expectation. Serral pulling all of those overlords back now, as he does have a dropper lord coming across the map as well.
There is a tiny chance that he uses it as an all-in tool as well, right? I mean, obviously it's going to be hard for these overlords to have vision of the bases because the mutas are going to fly around, mutas are going to pick off overlords left and right. Serral just invested quite a bit of his resources in a couple spore crawlers here and there. He's going for hydras, but it takes a little while before the hydra upgrades truly kick in as well. And if Scarlett can suddenly show up maxed out full-on roaches, especially with a Nidus maybe in the main base, things can get very, very dicey for Serral. There is that Nidus in the main base, Wardy. I kind of like the way Scarlett is playing this, but Serral is counterattacking, so it's important for Scarlett to keep track of these units of Serral as well. And Serral's also dropping roaches in the main base of Scarlett.
Queen going to go down in the main base. A few hydras here going to pick off a couple mutas. That's kind of a big deal already, actually. The Nidus in the main is going to be the biggest issue. As you can see, Serral's pulling units over there to deal with it, but there's also units from Scarlett going to hit the third base of Serral. So Serral and Scarlett are both all over the place as the hydra then goes down.
Yeah, I think this is really frustrating for Scarlett, right? She wants Serral to sit at home. She wants Serral to defend, and then she wants to utilize her Nidus to drag him all over the place. But Serral's like, no, I'm having none of that. You want to attack me? That's fine. I will be attacking you. And these mutas going down so quickly, that actually makes things really painful for Scarlett as well, as Serral just shows up with hydras on the other side of the map. Not something that I expected.
Well, Serral obviously having some trouble in the main base, and it's going to be tough to defend for him here as we go into kind of a full-on base trade mode, but there's some roaches from Serral showing back up from over at the third, and well, all of a sudden, it feels like Serral just has way too much. How is he 60 supply up? We've barely seen anything happen.
I feel like he's been winning all these little skirmishes here and there, picking off those mutas as well. And obviously, with that carapace upgrade, Serral's units were just a little bit stronger in the straight-up fights. And I kind of like the call of Serral to just ignore his main base, not playing the game that Scarlett wanted to play. Serral said, nope, I think my army is better in a straight-up fight, and that's absolutely the case. And Scarlett here is in a lot of trouble in her semifinals against Serral.
How do you make a decision like that as well, to just give up the main base? Like, how often do you play Roach, Muta into Nidus? I don't even know. That's actually crazy, and Serral absolutely comes out ahead in all of this. As all the Roaches now go across the map, and well, Scarlett just doesn't have the numbers to hold on. She is down 50 army supply.
She still does have 50 drones. That's nice and all, but you're spot on. On the ground, it really seems like it's not realistic to expect a defense here of Scarlett. Serral moves forward with his roaches, gets on top of that Ravager, gets on top of these roaches as well. And the man who took the bronze medalist home last year at WESG is poised. He's very keen to make it to his very first grand finals ever here in this tournament. He's looking really good. Really, really good, Waddy.
Yeah, he's looking amazing. I just can't get over that call to just completely leave the main. Because there was a moment where it was like, oh, you know what? He was sending a few units on the minimap over to it, and he's like, no, actually, I'm going to pull back to the third and defend the attack here. I'm going to have my large attack across the map do enough to make up for losing my main base. And just kept it calm as we have, oh, look at that, the boys in the crowd.
What a bunch of handsome gentlemen right there.
It's good that they come out to watch the games.
Yeah, I actually really like that. Some of these people are like, no, I'm going to stay in my hotel for the next 5 days because I'm really upset that I lost. And I'm like, come on, you know, there's millions of Starcraft fans that would love to be there, would love to watch these games. And I get it, you know, if you go to every tournament, you can get tired of certain things. But I always think it's good to show up. And I mean, that looks like a really cool setup. I'd love to sit in that stadium and watch some Starcraft. Why not?
Yeah, it looks sick, right? Look how many people there as well. It's really cool.
All I would need is a hot dog and a cheeky one, Waddy. That would be my perfect Saturday afternoon. It's obviously a little bit late already in China. No afternoon there. Probably early in the evening. That's kind of interesting, by the way, if you think about it. The semifinals, imagine just playing one game, semifinals, and it starts at like 5 or 6 p.m., like your local time. You have to space out your day really well then. It's important that you don't wake up at 8 a.m. because whoever wants to wake up at 8 a.m. when you have your really important match at 6 p.m.
Yeah, 10 hours later. Like, no thanks.
Well, like ideally I would say you wake up at like 11 or
12
or noon and then, you know, take it easy.
Bit of warmer, bit of food.
Yep, have a little bit of breakfast, have some food, and then obviously get a couple games in, maybe take a break, and then 1 hour in advance you get a few more games in and make sure that everything feels good and you're focused. I mean, I love the way that Serral has performed this week, Waddy. I really do. It started off so rough for him. In the first 2 games, he played at this event. He played against Neep. He lost 0-2 in some very one-sided games. In games that were, I'm going to say, were not even Serral worthy, man. Like, he just ended up losing bases against random Dark Templars walking to the other side of the map. It felt like lackluster and uninspiring play. At that point, I was starting to get truly a bit worried after the 2 defeats he had at the Into Extreme Masters in Katowice as well. But Sarah's like, how many times have you guys doubted me last year? Do you guys really think that the era ends here? So far, the answer seems no, Waddy. He has truly turned it around this week.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It felt like he hit rock bottom, and now he is back on top. 2-0 up. It's Serral in the top left, joined in the bottom right by Scarlett, who is on her last lifeline.
Now, Scarlett obviously capable of making comebacks. I absolutely do have faith in that, but Serral just seems bulletproof so far. I really think that Serral went in to this semifinals with a very, very good mindset. I think Serral in general is very confident in ZVZ. I don't think he's too worried about it. But I also believe he seems to be one of these players that the more he thinks about how to defeat certain playstyles or certain players, the better he gets at it. Serral truly becomes stronger throughout practice, throughout games, throughout experience. And yeah, he just seems incredibly well prepared. That's the only thing I can say.
Yeah. No, it's actually crazy. And some of these players just, you know how hard it is, right? Because when I'm playing Starcraft 2, like I look at my game like, oh, I need to do this and that, and how do you put that into practice? Whereas some of these players, like Serral, he looks at a game, he's like, okay, well, next time I play against this, a few games down the line, I'm going to make this slight change, and just slowly adapting that play style. Obviously, over the course of a series, that's huge as well, right? You get more of an idea of how your opponent's playing, and that's what separates the greatest players in the world from the other very, very strong players that are around.
No, you're spot on. Sometimes feels like you're watching an anime saga or something where a guy just absorbs everything that the other person is capable of doing as well. It's like Dragon Ball Z stuff over here. It's like, how does he do it? He just knows all their tricks. That's kind of what it feels like watching Serral. Of course, it would be a massive moment for him. A lot of people have been talking about Serral in 2019. And like I said, is it even possible for Serral to do better in 2019 than he did in 2018? Well, of course, there's some crazy scenarios where that would have been possible. But IEM Katowice, I'm not going to say it was a bad showing by Serral. I think some people were pulling that a little bit too far out of context because Serral still ended up winning his group with 5 Koreans in the alongside him, and if anybody else would have done that, that would have been major news, and everybody would have been raving about it. And for Serral, it's like, well, he dropped one best of 3, by the way, when he was already advanced, so he looks weaker. And then he lost a very close nail-biting series against one of the greatest Zergs we've had in Legacy of the Void, Sul, the man who's made so many GSL finals. So I think IEM Katowice was not, massively disappointing or something, or it wasn't like a horrible showing by Serral, but if he wanted to top 2018, he pretty much has to win everything that he participates in this year. WESG, of course, a tournament where last year he fell in the semifinals against Maru. That very same Maru who will be in action later tonight, going up against Innovation. But things are looking very good for Serral, of course.
Scarlett with an early Evo chamber here, as we do see a couple of things running past, already seen the Evo, and of course this is not an Evo that's timed out for missile attack or anything like that. It's going to be something on the Zerglings, and that something will be a melee upgrade. Another way to mix it up, though. That's what we wanted.
I mentioned that in the previous game, right? These are the styles that I really think Scarlett is A, excellent in executing, and B, I think that's kind of the way to defeat Serral. Now, I don't think there is a blueprint on how to defeat Serral, but I do really think it's important that you make the games go a little different, a little crazier, slightly offbeat, off-tempo, just anything that messes with the regular stuff, because Serral embraces the regular stuff. That's what he loves the most, and that's where he shines the most. So I love it by Scarlett. I would have liked to see this playstyle actually on Automaton, because the map is slightly bigger. I believe it's slightly better for Zergling Harass later on as well. I think there are more ways you can run around with your links, but I'm still so happy to see Scarlett try over here. And hey, at this point, you got to try something, right, Waddy?
Yeah, you can't just go for the, I mean, I say the same old. It's not like she's been playing straight up in standard stars. She's been throwing those Nidus networks into the roaches, and, it's been interesting. So there should just be straight up kind of lings into probably mutas with the speed of the lair as well. Yeah, so really switching it up, complete 180 here.
This is a pretty crazy opening, by the way, with Scarlett, right? To go for a lair that quickly, going for 3 bases as well. N+1. Whoa, double Evo?
Yeah, double upgrades.
Oh my goodness, he's pulling the Zenster over here.
Oh, she really is actually, as we see the Roach run up from Serral now. So he's going to go straight into Roaches. I mean, he saw the first Evo, but hasn't had much of a read since then.
No. And I mean, Serral, I think if there is one thing that you can say about Serral is that he's in general not too crazy aggressive early on, right? He will absolutely throw in a cheese once in a blue moon, like he did in Game 2 against Dark as well. If Serral truly feels like the right thing to do is cheese, he will do it. But his more standard approach is always, let's defend, because I believe that I'm the better player. So why not just defend and make my opponent attack? Because in general, we say that defending is a little bit easier than attacking in StarCraft 2. But look at these upgrades for Scarlett. I mean, Scarlett is playing a crazy greedy game here.
Oh.
If Serral would have made, like, let's say 28 Zerglings and would have had a very quick baiting nest and Morph Banes on the other side of the map, this would have been a disastrous scenario for Scarlett. Instead, she's getting away with everything.
And she's going for a Hydralisk Den. Okay, this might be crazy, What if she plays Ling Lurker?
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm not even going to say it's impossible. I've seen some of that weird stuff work as well, but this is obviously going to come mostly down to the Ling upgrades, right? The Lurkers are, I think, for down the line, because it would be weird to get all these upgrades for your Zerglings and then go Hydras. Like, why would you? That doesn't make that much sense, right? So there we do have that Lurker then going down. Obviously, that is something that will really come into play later on. Man, I love the strategy Scarlett is bringing to the table. And I know that sounds funny, guys, because I know she's down 0-2, but I just love watching the way she's playing at the moment.
I mean, this is like, when do you practice against this? It's like, you know, does Serral hit Risky on the ladder very often? Because Risky did this for like a month or so.
Yeah, I remember seeing that as well.
Like, that's really about it. It's not something you usually see, and it has so much potential to just cause something crazy here, because you have no idea what to really expect.
I mean, it's going to be hard for Serral, I think, to go up to 4 bases as well, right? Because it's mostly those Zerglings that are going to be running around. These Lings are feisty. All right, Serral does not want to play that game. There is the Nidus network for Serral, and that does make some sense. Lings are fantastic in these, like, skirmishes, in these, you know, if Serral would attack over the ground, the Lings can pick up reinforcements and stuff, but what would happen against a straight-up Nidus play? There was one Changeling left behind. Scarlett is obviously already thinking about this, and if she can just keep those Niduses as far away from her main base as possible, the more and more I'm starting to believe in Scarlett, her chances here. I don't like that infestation pit now, by the way. Scarlett, you need to get some units out.
Yeah, and the Lurkers take forever to build, so it's going to be still a little while until Lurkers are here. 20-second morphin once the Lurker den's finished. There's, the first Night is found, but it's by Zerglings, and Serral is there to defend it.
Yep, but, I mean, I would normally expected a few more Zerglings there out of Scarlett, because he's supposed to win those Link skirmishes, right? And then she can maybe even pick up the Nidus as well. But there are 5 Lurkers, and 5 Lurkers can absolutely hold the ramp here. I don't think Serral has a lot of Ravages in the mix. I don't think I've seen them, at least. Look at Scarlett, by the way, already going into a hive. She is showing no respect for this at all. I think that's a little bit crazy, but let's see how good those Lurkers are truly going to be, Waddy.
Yeah, Serral's starting to come up through to the top side here. Those Lurkers are seen. Yeah, I mean, this is just tough, though. Like, how do you fight into 5 Lurkers no matter what?
Where are the Overseers of Serral?
I don't know. I don't think they exist, right?
Okay, there's one over there, but this Nidus network is going to go down almost immediately. There are Zerglings countering, by the way, for Scarlett, and I love that because these Lings, we've been talking about the upgrades. These Lings are very feisty. Serral just lost his +2 missile attack against the Zergling counter from Scarlett.
Yeah, and he lost that Nidus in the main base, so Scarlett's holding on here as Serral is not finding an opening. And Serral, I think, was kind of committed, thinking, yeah, this Nidus play is going to probably get me towards ending this game, but absolutely not. And now even more Lings going across the map. Serral just has to go home and defend. And
these Lings are going to deal a lot of damage, Wardy. They're so freaking strong. These roads are going to get picked off. A lot of these drones are going to go down. There is another Evo chamber in the main base, but look at these drone losses racking up on the left side. The observer's not showing us, but 22 drones already went down, and Serral is actually in so much trouble here.
The Queens as well getting forced back into that Nidus, so that's getting cleaned up. More and more workers are dropping. 35 workers are dead. And what is Serral meant to do? I mean, he's getting a Nidus in the main, but he doesn't even try it. Scarlett fights back and is able to take a game free.
And in the way that she did it as well. I mean, I loved it. I think that's really smart. And this goes back to what I said before the series even started. Scarlett can absolutely beat Serral, but it has to be done on a quote-unquote strategic way. And I know it's like, well, isn't it always the case in the strategy game? No, actually, you know, Starcraft 2 is a lot about execution. But there are still ways to squeeze in different strategies and just kind of trying to outsmart or at least do things differently. And Scarlett is so good with weird builds like this. And you can see that I honestly feel there is just so much more potential for her to win a series against Serral when she does stuff like this than when she tries to beat Serral in the good old Roach Wars, because nobody really beats him in the Roach Wars.
I think Serral just obviously had no idea what to expect from this, and maybe 40 could hit just before the Lurkers came out, but the Nidus was in the completely wrong position to be able to do that.
I think, obviously, that Changeling in the main base that was supposed to get the good Nidus up, right? It's kind of like, hey, here's my Overseer. If you take it out, then I can't Nidus you. But Scarlett picked up on that immediately. I think sniping that Changeling was very important. I think Serral at first didn't have an Overseer in the mix either, because it felt like it took a little while, and it just felt like Serral completely missed the window. And even at very first, that tiny counterattack, only the first like 8 or 12 Zerglings to Scarlett already did so much damage. Lings, of course, attack very quick, so +2 upgrade is massive. Now, is that something that Scarlett can just do again in Game 4? The answer is probably not, because if Serral does actually fire up 28 Zerglings early on and has a very quick offensive Bailing Nest, because Scarlett completely skipped the Bailing Nest, right? So she went Ling, 3 bases, quick lair, double Evo. When it works, awesome, and you look fantastic, but if your opponent makes 28 Zerglings and a couple Bailings on the other side of the map, the game will most likely end there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The Bailings especially just so good in those situations, because what do upgrades matter if the Bailings put all the Lings on like 1 HP super fast, or if you're constantly having to split away and getting surrounded? It makes no difference. So the build definitely has its weaknesses. And we're just talking about how good Serral is at seeing these little things, identifying them, and then adjusting throughout a series.
Yep. Oh, that gets me very excited for Game 4. I've definitely been enjoying the semifinals of the WESG so far, as we are loading into year 0. A lot of people on the ladder are not a fan of this map. They like to veto it, but over the last few weeks of competitive StarCraft, we have seen some, I would almost say, legendary games already on this map.
Yeah, no, we've seen some real long games, some real tug-of-wars. It's been crazy as we jump between Serral and Scarlett's bases early game. Obviously, Serral top right, Scarlett top left. And this is not the kind of map you really try to be aggressive on, unless it's something like a Nidus. But I tell you what, this is a heck of a map to throw in some middle lists.
What about some double hatch openings over here, perhaps from Scarlett's side?
Definitely possible too, right? Because what is Serral going to do early game to shut that down or to be aggressive? Like, there's just nothing. Why would you be? It's such a big map.
Very hard to get a lot of these ground attacks going early on. Now, of course, this is a map that normally plays into the strength of Serral, right? Because, once again, Serral wants to make it to the 66 or 70 drone mark any given point, 4 bases, get the upgrades going, get a couple roaches out, and as long as Serral is not in any danger of just dying anymore, in general, he loves playing ZVZ, he loves playing that phase in the game. Seems like it's going to be standard 2-base openings over here on both sides. Kind of expected maybe a cheeky 3-hatch opening coming out of Scarlett, but he's playing it very fair and normal.
Yeah. No, absolutely standard so far. Hatch, gas in the pool underway as a few drones on the way up on either side of the map. And not really anything to really mention just yet.
It's got a cheeky smile on my face thinking about our next semifinals as well. The casual good old Maru versus Innovation, guys. Coming up for all you Terran fans out there. You know, I'm just happy to see that the semifinals are so well distributed, you know, between the 2 races. Sorry, guys. Nah, it's going to be fun. I'm so excited to see it. And once again, I feel like it doesn't really matter what our final is going to be. And I like that we haven't really been talking too much about that one final that a lot of people do truly want to see. Because I also feel like you're kind of setting yourself up for disappointment at this point, and none of these 4 amazing StarCraft players deserve that, right? Because it doesn't matter which ones of these 4 are going to make it to the final, because all 4 of them are amazing. They've all got very, very impressive resumes. They're all champions, but I guess the community wants a certain final.
Yeah, I'd say so. There's one that's definitely preferred. Third hatchery from both players here. Real just, I mean, as you would expect, right, just laid back, building up, just getting the feelings up to kind of see what's going on, but otherwise it's going to be drones and just macroing up for the next few moments here on year 0. It's just difficult to really do anything that works otherwise anyways, so. Yep.
These queens were chasing that Overlord. I love the little link block there by Serral. Serral tries to get one of his happy Zerglings into the main base of Scarlett, and we'll see that nothing weird is happening here. There's no Evo chamber. There's no lair starting yet. Did that Overlord go down, by the way, Serral? No, right?
I think it's the one that's just down to the south. It's able to move away a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's still going. I think the little body block on from the 2 Zerglings. Yeah, that really helped quite a bit. Otherwise, Serral in danger of losing perhaps one Overlord down. Look at these queens going way out of their way. Still trying to find that Overlord, but love the positioning there as well on the high ground, you know, because even then, if they get attacked, they can move back to the sort of low ground again. And Queen's obviously not the fastest unit off creep.
Bane nest from both, as you expect a pretty kind of fast-paced start in terms of the unit movement on the ground. Ling Bane to just again have that maneuverability across year 0 here. And do you see Serral? A little bit of a surround there. Scarlett move commands just for a moment too long. And now the Evo chambers from both sides as well. But I mean, these are Evo chambers that kind of feels like it's just get set up for the roaches follow up. More so than, okay, Ling Bane, Carapace, or Melee.
All right, well, there is that lair, by the way. Serral having a quicker lair than Scarlett. I think that's the first time in this series that has happened. +1 missile attacks on the way indeed for Scarlett. How cool would it be if Serral suddenly opens up with a very quick Spire, by the way? Can't really recall the last time that he did it. Like, Serral's just not much of a Muta guy in this matchup, is he?
No, he's kind of just, I mean, why? You know? Yeah. Because if the Mutas get hard counted or they just don't do enough and suddenly you're putting yourself behind for no reason, well, you know, why not just have built the roaches, he probably thinks to himself. But not bad to switch it up throughout a best of 5, as we do see one lane darts into the main base here and gets all the way up that ramp. So gets some pretty good info, doesn't quite see the main. As we do just see the lair starting up from Scarlett as well. She has her +1 missiles on the way. Don't believe Scarlett has a roach run yet though, so Serral...
Scarlett actually had a pretty big economic advantage. I know there are 11 drones on the way at this point for Serral, and Serral has perhaps been throwing away a few more Zerglings here and there to scout, but I'm gonna love the way that that looked on the board for a little while there for Scarlett. And these are things that do start adding up. There is the Spire coming out of Serral. All right, Waddy. Well. Serral opening up with a Spire. I'm going to sit for this one. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's going to be a few Mutalisks then, so definitely the switch up. And is Scarlett going to be expecting that? Because obviously Scarlett's probably going to do her homework as well. And like you say, I kind of find it hard to think of when Serral probably mixed in the Spire last in a ZVZ series. No scan for Scarlett just yet. And the main base, so the Spire going undetected. It is such a hard map to really do anything about Mutas on him, unless you kind of Nidus and go like Roach Queen. She throws down her own Spire.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's bad for her though, because it is just that little bit later, and every second will count. But it's probably not the game where Serral makes tons of Mutas and goes into +1, so there's not a huge offset there.
I would say yes and no, right? Obviously, yes, the Mutas will come out a bit quicker for Serral, but year 0 is so big that can Serral really fly to the other side of the map and then take a fight, which is advantageous for him. I think in general, this is starting to head into a slightly weirder game where, you know, who's going to make more Mutas? Is one player going to go all out on the Mutas? Is one person going to try to counter it, maybe with Infestors and Parasitic Bomb way down the road? And I think in general, anything that feels a little bit off is good for Scarlett. I think the weirder the games get, the better it is for her. And the more normal they stay, the better it is for Serral. I wonder if Serral's playing a little bit out of his comfort zone right now, but then again, this is Serral. He is the BlizzCon champ for a reason, so let's not doubt him too much, but I kind of like this on paper for Scarlett, man.
Yeah, it looks kind of funky as she does have her own Spire going to finish. She did start +2 a bit faster as well, obviously, because her Spire wasn't done. She didn't have to spend money on Mutalisks as fast as Serral did. And Serral's Mutas are going to be coming into play very soon. And as right now, Scarlett just making a bunch of roaches. And oh, she goes for Corruptors. This is a really weird counter, but it definitely can work. I mean, I casted Solar vs. Dark Katowice last year, which was like a crazy game where Corruptors were made as the counter to Mutas. And you can Caustic Spray down bases, of course, and it's not normal, but it can kind of work, and it's a Scarlett game, right? Like, this is what Scarlett needs, something a bit crazy.
Look at Serral getting Baneling speed as well. We saw Dark try to hit some Roach Bane timings multiple times. Now, once again, year 0 is a map where making ground attacks can become a little bit difficult. If Serral wants to end a game like this with a massive attack of Roaches, Lings, and Banes, I think it will make a lot of sense for Serral to get his own Nidus network as well. That first Corruptor got revealed there. 5 Overlords, by the way, going down against these Mutas. I think Serral almost is going to sacrifice his Mutas, right? Maybe just right-click on a couple drones, because eventually Mutas are not going to win this fight, but they can be annoying. They can find a little bit of economic damage. I like the way he's flying away from those Corruptors. And at the same time, Serral is trying to get ready to get something magical happening on the ground there. Scarlett has to be very careful, because a couple of her Roaches were actually dropping around there a bit.
Yeah, Serral has a bit of an advantage, I think, just because he was able to kill those Overlords. The Corruptors obviously haven't done much, while at least the Mutas were able to get some value for themselves. It's so weird to see Serral being the one having to make Spore Crawlers here. As we do see the Roach fight, though, is kicking off. Roach Ravager splitting up well from Serral so far. Great fight from him. Absolutely capitalizing on this fight in the middle. Yeah,
I don't think Scarlett really had to take that fight there, right? Right before her +2 kicks in as well, but now it's a lot closer to her ramp, so there's going to be some reinforcements, but massive Corrosive Balls, actually, kind of landing in the middle of the army of Scarlett as well. The Corruptors did take out that fort base, so that puts a little more pressure on Serral. Yes, The Roach fight went good, Serral, but you need more, and he wants to get more right here, Waddy.
And he's just got his own +2 finished up, so the upgrades have evened out as Serral comes in with the numbers, taking down Roach after Roach. The Ravager's already bruised from Scarlett as well, as Serral pushes up the ramp, and there is just not enough at the moment. Now, a few Roaches come in from the right side, and Serral decides, okay, I'm going to pull back down here and continue to fight, as my own reinforcements will come in a little bit faster then. But you can just see the supply numbers tilting so heavily in favor of our Finnish Zerg, our reigning world champion, as he takes down another Ravagers. The drones get pulled in from Scarlett, and it looks like Serral is going to the grand finals.
Yep, the man who took home the bronze medalist last year fell in the quarterfinals, the European qualifiers in 2016. That just kind of shows the improvement and the progress that he's made. Goes from top 8 Europe to taking home like $40,000 last year and the bronze medal. This